Hello and welcome into another bonus edition of the Couch GMs podcast. And every week I forget to unclick the loop back button. So we're going to listen to the intro music one more time while we play, talk through this here. Special guest. I don't know if I can call it a special guest when your face is literally on the logo, but George Kurth is joining us to talk about it. He sent me a video last week to do some smack talking because he had a pretty impressive week and I didn't get the video. So he wanted to make sure his voice was heard this week. George, how you doing?
I feel better that I get to listen to you do the intro and have the music go over you instead of it going over me. And then you forgetting to cut it out. So that's a start. I know we're a lot more low key on our bonus episodes here, so that's staying in. But
For sure.
I mean, 1 and 3, I'm vibing, but I've had 3 straight good weeks. It's just kind of ran into some tough competition, so I'm not super worried over here.
Yeah, I mean, I snuck out a victory. Mainly thanks to Travis Kelsey's girlfriend, or I'm sorry, Taylor Swift's boyfriend, whichever side of that fiasco you're on, not getting enough points. And that's how I got my week 4 victory. Before we jump into the Couch GMs World Cup recap, any big news topics, or should we save that all for Thursday or Friday morning?
I mean, I don't think there's anything super major. We got Swifties thinking that Zach Wilson's better than Patrick Mahomes, but I think that's probably about it, and that's all I want to talk about it. So,
Alrighty, and we'll talk about this more on the Thursday recording, Friday episode. Possibly Jonathan Taylor back for the Colts. We'll see how that situation plays out. Why don't we just jump right in to our World Cup recap? Alrighty, and if this is your first time listening to this episode, you're like, what is the World Cup? That is the Couch GM's 30-person, 4-year fantasy football experience, trying to figure out who is the best at fantasy football. It is 30 people, like I mentioned, which means there is 3 leagues, 10-man leagues. We'll reshuffle them again the next year and so on. And in year 4, we'll have a World Cup, best of the best, winner take all. So again, this is always a good reminder that obviously if you're listening to this on your phone on your way to work or something like that, jump over to not now if you're driving, wait till you get to the office, then go on YouTube and watch out so you can see all scores. But we'll jump right in here with Group A. And George is here to add some commentary, some feedback, and really just make sure I get the right Andrews because I am really bad at that. I know that. I apologize to Andrew out there. Hopefully we finally get it. I think I got it right last week, but hopefully with George here, we do not mess it up this week. And we'll start off with Tyler, who Tyler got his first win of the Couch GMs World Cup after starting 0-3, gets a victory 123.10 to 68.76. So as always, we get the score and then we scroll down here and look at the box score, which I always forget to click on the first one. 4 weeks in, you think I would have this down. So George, as you look at these teams real quick, anything really stand out to you? While you look, I'll talk. Alvin Kamara, Smaller Kamara is Tyler's name, came back this week. Had a pretty decent fantasy day with 14.9 points. So good to see him back there. But did you know he had 13 receptions for 33 yards? Like
I did
that.
see that. Like near the top end of the league in receptions, which is absolutely crazy. But you got to think that they're probably going to start using him that way once Jamal Williams is back anyway. Like it's not going to be the Alvin Kamara show like it has been in the past. But
And
as a fantasy owner, that's fantastic.
yeah, and just to put in perspective, like how rare it is to get 13 receptions and only 33 receiving yards out of it. The current record, and this is such a weird stat, of someone who has caught 13 or plus passes.
Is it Jarvis Landry first off?
I don't know who it is off the top of my head,
So I
but
feel like it's Jarvis Landry.
but the previous record was 78 yards, I believe, in the mid 70s, somewhere like that. So only about in between a third and a half of that. So something pay attention there. But really, his victory is on the back of one man. If you're looking at that, and that is Christian McCaffrey, Mr. Four Tutties himself, 45 points. I'll let you say if you had Christian McCaffrey, you probably won in fantasy football this week.
100%. I think we are learning very quickly he should have been pick 1. Although the people that are out there with Justin Jefferson that most likely he was taken pick 1, they aren't really complaining. He's had a very solid year. But the running backs in general carrying Tyler, which I know that you and I have been, you more than me, have been kind of critical of like drafting running backs high. When you get 45 out of McCaffrey and 23 out of Jacobs, he won his game without any other position players in this case, as Ryan just had another rough week, only putting up 68. But that is not something you're going to expect every week. But if that's going to keep happening and McCaffrey and Jacobs both end up as top 5 backs, Tyler's going to have a team to make a run in the second half.
Yeah, especially when your quarterback puts up less than 12, you have a goose egg from Jordan Addison on your bench and Debo Samuel getting 0.6. But let's move over to Urban Warfare team. Jalen Hurts had a good week, but outside of that, his team struggled. Kenneth Walker got in the end zone, but Javonte Williams got hurt. I know you mentioned on your TikTok, and unfortunately, maybe if you listen to this right when this podcast, you can still get in there for that Broncos guy that I've never heard of, but probably should pick up this week if you're desperate.
Jaleel
Chris Olave,
McLaughlin. Jaleel
that guy.
McLaughlin for anybody out there.
Thank you. Chris Olave. Derek Carr could look like he couldn't pass down the field. I know he's dealing with that shoulder injury, but is it on his throwing arm? I thought it was on his non-throwing arm. So maybe
It's on his throwing arm, which is why I'm shocked he played. I was totally expecting to eat some W's like you were doing on our podcast episode last week.
And you have to wonder too, like if you can't throw it more than perfect example, you can only throw it to Alvin Kamara that he can get 13 receptions for 33 yards. Maybe Derek Carr should have taken a week off. George Pickens struggles without Kenny Pickett. Let's see if any guy on his bench could have really helped boost his performance. I mean, Gabe Davis caught a touchdown, but nothing really here. Tyler had some better wide receivers there, so it looks like a solid win for Tyler all around. The second matchup was between the other Tyler, but we call him Kempy and Cam. Kempy gets the victory. He moves to 3-1. Cam falls to 500 at 2-2. 122.40 to 91.9. Josh Allen, big week for Cam. A big week for a lot of people. He had 5 total touchdowns on the day, 4 passing, 1 rushing. Good to see him bouncing back. But wasn't much other action there. Raheem Mostert with his 2 fumbles didn't help his week, and Devon Achane, he popped off this week. We'll talk about more of the Devon Achane, Raheem Mostert on the Friday show. But any other guys really stick out to you on Cam's team, or do you just want to jump over and talk about anybody on Kempy's team?
No, I think I'm good on Cam's team. He just didn't quite get the consistency he needed behind that strong Josh Allen performance. Kempy's team, he's just deep. I mean, the fact that he had drafted Garrett Wilson high, and Garrett Wilson now basically can slot in as his wide receiver 4. And he's still got, I see Nico Collins there on the bench, Khalil Herbert, like DJ Moore. Like that team just ended up so deep that like he maybe hit a couple of speed bumps, but he has plenty of guys to go and fill that spot.
Yeah, and I think just by looking at it, like I mentioned, 102 bench points this week. He has some guys. Now, he might fall into the trap where, like you see, Nico Collins on his bench, Khalil Herbert popped off. Jordan Love had, another decent week despite the Packers looking like hot garbage on Thursday Night Football. DJ Moore is finally starting to look good. So he might have some weeks where you can get a victory on him because he picks the wrong guys. That's the one problem that's a problem about having a 2 deep team. But a solid performance for Kempy as he moves into week 5. The third matchup, which is featuring the highest score of this Group A with 153.28 points to Collins 82.48. So that's Andrew, by the way. They got 153.
Andrew
S.
Yay, he's got it.
I got this. But how do we get to 153 points? That's what we have to talk about right here. And Kyron Williams, but him and Devon Achane and Puka Nacua, it's early. It's week 4, looking like a real tight race for waiver wire edition of the year. And honestly, with the way Kyron Williams playing, he might have it just because of the running back position, and Achane might get into still always be in that split because other guys are coming back. But he had Kyron Williams. He had Mark Andrews. He had Puka Nakua. We just talked about both of those guys putting up 26 points. Speaking of, that was like the weirdest game ever. They were up
Yes.
23-0, and then next thing I know, it was going to overtime, and then they finally won. Like, I don't know what that was about.
I don't know.
That's for sure. So looks like Andrew already, being one of the top teams in this league at 3-1, currently the second overall place person, putting up big weeks, spending up the fab to get these guys on waivers. Looks like a strong competitor. Collins' team, on the other hand, Tua took a step back. I think it's time. We'll talk about this on Friday too. I don't think Jahmyr Gibbs is no longer a guy that you're trusting to start until we've seen otherwise. 30 carries for David Montgomery, short week coming off of a thigh injury. So not great for us, Jahmyr
Jameer.
Gibbs. Thank you.
Yep.
T. Higgins goes out with a rib injury, and that Bengals offense continues to struggle. People were on the Roshan train. I mean, only putting up 82 points, but having 33 with Stephon Diggs is definitely a tough look. So it makes me interested to check out his bench here. And his just a tough week overall for Colin here. Nothing really he could do about it. Andrew looks like he hit the nail on the head. Who to play? Only 34 bench points. So great week for Andrew. Tough week for Colin. Colin's sitting at 1-3, but I know Colin, he can definitely bounce back from this and make it interesting down the stretch. We're still week 4, and we'll talk about this all season long. Like, you might 0-4, 1-3. Don't give up in fantasy football. Every year there's someone that starts out 1-5, squeaks into the playoffs, they win a championship. Like, it doesn't seem crazy, but that's the ebbs and flow of fantasy football. So make sure these teams that, we see a couple losses piling up, watch out for them to make the playoffs, make a push at the end, and be recapping the Couch GMs World Cup all season long on these bonus edition episodes of the Couch GMs podcast. Our fourth matchup is Andrew T with Chaos Reigns versus Nick, and his name is Black Sheep. Nick is one of Tyler's brother, right? So I think the Black Sheep is a little bit on the family ties right there, if anyone's curious about that
I
one.
think so. Yeah.
But 109.08 to 85.82 for Andrew to 3-1. And that's impressive because he had a late scratch of Deshaun Watson, putting up a 0. So this one didn't come back to him. It could have. And I know those late scratches are always a head turner, or, can get people off, because not everybody, as much as we would like to, at 11:30 in the morning when inactives come out, one sitting at our phone. Some people have a life, some people can't, they have to work. So we get it. It sucks when it happens. So, but Andrew escapes a real issue there with Deshaun Watson not playing in that matchup. And really, that was thanks to AJ Brown and Isaiah Pacheco's big night on Sunday Night Football, where Nick's
And
team,
Derrick Henry pretending like there's snow up in Vermont also.
yeah, he did get his 4th passing touchdown of his career and put up a decent week. So shout out to
Yeah.
Derrick Henry. Always love to see when he is running the ball hard. The other team, though, I mean, it's 80 points doesn't feel like a good week, but when you're looking at the scores, like, yeah, there's a couple misgivings, especially, Kyle Pitts. That experience is probably over unless he's traded. Michael Pittman only getting 4 points, and 2 of that came on a 2-point version. So tough there. But Michael Thomas, we talked about the issues with Derek Carr. So just a rough week overall. Any guys on the bench that could have potentially swayed this in one direction? He wouldn't have needed about 20 points. He could have made a little bit of ground up with Brock Purdy. And then if Lamar Jackson was started, though, Andrew would have ran away with this one. So not too much to dissect here. Our last matchup, though, is between Greg, who is 110.76, versus Sean, 104.28. So a very close matchup, but Greg moves to 4-0, one of our 3 remaining 4-0 teams. And I know Greg brought up a good point. He mentioned it to George about talking about what some of these 4-0 teams have in common. And although it's only 8 points this week, Tyreek Hill is one of the things. He's the number 2 wide receiver on the season, half point PPR, like a half a point behind Justin Jefferson. I know he's a big factor, and this Cowboys defense. That's a common denominator you'll see. I said to a group of guys beforehand, but I'm going to pull that up. George, anyone else you want to mention on Greg's team or Sean's team?
Greg's team didn't really have a great week. He was destroying worlds the first 2 weeks. He's kind of come back down to earth, but like still snuck out 2 wins. So he's just been consistent. He kind of fell into a good situation with DeAndre Swift after week 1. Tyreek Hill having a bad week and Kirk Cousins and still able to pull it out. It's a little bit lucky, honestly. But Sean, if you're listening, I never understand what your names mean. So I don't know what that's chunky is, but it makes me chuckle every single time I see it. His side of the ball, like this was a really interesting week for some of these like top end scoring players. Jamar Chase has just struggled all year, but like Travis Etienne only put up 8. Jalen Waddle coming off the injury just couldn't get it going. He's been struggling a little bit this year too. I expected more out of Christian Kirk this season with Calvin Ridley coming back, and it's just not been too fantastic. 12 is probably one of his better scoring outputs though. Solid week. 104 probably would have won. I would have to look back up. It probably would have been like middle of the pack, but he just happened to run into somebody that did a little bit better. Yeah, it looks like he would have won against 5 other.
He wouldn't. He is the highest scoring of the losers.
Yes.
So that's how you describe that.
Yep.
That sounds very weird to say.
Just a little unlucky there. So
let's check out bench points. See if David Montgomery on the bench definitely played that over Travis Etienne. That should get him the victory. Jahan Dotson over Jerry Jeudy doesn't quite get him there. So really it's just the David Montgomery on the bench. And that's a tough one. Thursday Night Football, wasn't sure if he was going to play. I do blame Sean for mentioning that one. But like Greg mentioned, and we're going to look at this the other 2 matchups too, but the guys that really sticking out to me are Tyreek Hill, Kirk Cousins, because he was QB1 coming into the week. I don't think he's still there now. I think Josh Allen probably passed him, or Justin Herbert.
Justin Herbert is still up there. Justin Herbert was before this week and put up another 23. So,
and then
I'm sure he probably is. Yeah.
And then the Cowboys defense, as I was pulling up the stats. So in half point PPR scoring, the Cowboys defense currently on the season would be QB7, running back 3, wide receiver 4, and tight end 1 by almost double the amount of points as the current tight end 1, which is TJ Hawkinson. They have 81 points on the season. TJ Hawkinson is in the 40s.
But TJ Hawkinson on this team as well, just worth mentioning. He didn't have a good week, but another common denominator, most likely, with how bad tight ends have been.
For sure. The guys that are, been the top scorers. And then Christian McCaffrey, obviously, it's helping for Tyler because he's 1-3, but in this group. But, he's the highest scoring fantasy player of all positions through 4 weeks. So something to keep an eye on. But let's jump into Group B. As you can see, it is loading up on the screen here. I have to hit Game Center, then go back to week 4. Where we start with me. Hey. I know it. Here, far, wherever, Jamar got a victory after a 2-game losing streak against the fantasy godfather. Marcus, I got you in this one. You got me in another league. So we split down the line this week. 130.66 to 121.96. So a very good map here. And Marcus is, unlike Sean, Marcus is the 3rd highest scorer in Group B. So that is a tough loss there as he falls to 1-3. So again, that's what we're talking about. 3rd highest scorer this week, still 1-3, can easily bounce back. But let's jump into the box score. And for me, I'm really surprised I won this game because if you look, Matt Stafford only got 16 points, and Jones 1.9 on Thursday Night Football. Zach Moss under 10, Chris Godwin 15, Jamar Chase 10. Mark Andrews finally had a good week at 22 points. So that's probably the saving grace. I have Alvin Kamara and then AJ Brown uh, in what was a lot closer game. The Washington Commanders always know how to play the Eagles. It seems that was a game George's heart was racing. So very two good matchup teams in our league. You'll see Marcus is the Puka Nacua owner and Kyron Williams owner, so he was the big fab spender
They
to
were on the
start.
same team in the other league too. That's also very intriguing.
Yeah, that's the fun part about doing this experience is not just to like seeing how the teams are constructed and to see how different some are, but then see how similar some of these other teams are as well. Bench points. Could Marcus have done anything to upset me? Anthony Richardson would have had
Mm,
5 more points than uh who does he have? Jalen Hurts. So
yeah.
5 would have quite done it. I mean, if he would have did the double, if you would have then flexed Brian Robinson over, nope, he couldn't have done that.
He
So,
could have done it over Jacoby Myers if he moved Puka up. So he could have done that and gotten the victory by like 2 points.
but I mean, I could have also played Brandon Ayuk over Chris Godwin, uh, Alexander Madison over Aaron Jones. So like we had similar bench points, very close matchup. Just sometimes we get lucky, sometimes it doesn't work in our favor. But second matchup is Group B's 4-0 team, Georgia's fiance, Bree, also known as My Kittle Pony. My Kittle Pony. Do you remember? I'm going to go on a side tangent for all the
Okay.
fellow Kutztowners that are in the World Cup. Do you remember when I had to make the jabroni spot for one of the classes?
I
Like
did.
the
Yes.
every time I see her name, that's all I can think about. It wasn't jabroni. That's what Travis Kelsey yelled or at the Cincinnati guy, but it was a My Little Pony like dude. Something. It was a weird project, and it's not on the internet, so you're not gonna be able to find it. So I apologize for that tangent. But
There's probably
one,
like 4 or 5 people in this group that would understand. So
George,
inside jokes.
you live with Bree, so I know
Yeah.
she was she sweating this matchup? I haven't scrolled down to look at her roster yet. Was it a close one? Did it come down to Monday night? How'd this play out?
Monday night, we had, if you scroll on down, you can probably find Ken Walker. So Ken Walker at -1 yards for like most of the first half, pops in a touchdown, and he's at 6. 0 yards in a touchdown. And it's like, oh, that touchdown felt good, but it's not going to do much of anything. And then finally, Seattle started getting the run game going. And it actually took until their final time killing drive where they kicked a field goal, I believe, for him to break that run down into from like the 40 down inside the 10 to actually take the lead in the matchup. So it really did sweat down to the end. And even though it ended up being a 2.2-ish point victory, that all came on one run at the end of the game. So it was very close.
Yeah, and that's the fun part about fantasy football because that Monday night game was not exciting.
Oh
It was
no.
hard to watch, especially if you're a Giants fan. So being able to have a player in the game and it comes down to the wire right there. And since Bree's 4-0, just some of the common denominators here. Tyreek Hill, we mentioned of it, wide receiver 2 on the season. The Buffalo Bills defense has been pretty high scoring. They're the second highest scoring defense. You have the recent breakout of Devon A-Chain the last 2 weeks. Um, proud to be in a double flex league when you've been rolling with T. Higgins, and he has not really put up that many points either. But Ken Walker is top 10 in running backs. Lamar Jackson, I believe, is top 5 in quarterbacks. Again, a lot of high positions. Doesn't seem like there's like a too many connecting dots between Group A and Group B. Other than Tyreek Hill, they happen to both have him. But I think it's very similar. They happen to have the right guys in the right moments. So,
That's
and
actually
if
really different because it's like these are two pretty highly drafted running backs. I'm pretty sure Greg kind of waited on running backs. He also waited on quarterback, and Bree has Lamar, who was taken pretty early. Like, the only common denominator is Tyreek Hill. The draft strategies were actually very different.
yeah, so I'm gonna scroll down here to look at her bench. I imagine so Tyreek Hill must have been her first round pick. So I wonder, and maybe Kenneth Walker, her second round pick off the top of my head. Maybe it was T.
It,
Higgins.
it might have been T. I'm really not sure. It's something like that. I can probably go back and take a look while you keep talking.
All right. So yeah, maybe you want to just look at look at that real quick. But on Hayden's side, right? Hayden. Yep. Sorry, I still haven't memorized everyone's name. I wish it would say their name in these little bars here as well, especially for doing these recaps. Stephon Diggs, like like Hayden's probably the only person in fantasy football, and I'm sorry, that lost with starting the Cowboys defense and Stephon Diggs in the same week.
Yeah, that's a tough one.
That's a tough loss, and just a bad week from Kirk Cousins and T.J. Hawkinson. Tua Atwell didn't do as much. Calvin Ridley thankfully got a touchdown. Um, even though in the Toy Story version it looked like he dropped the ball at first, but he got it. Other than that, so yeah, that's wraps up that matchup. Let's keep this moving on with George here. We're
If you
getting a
give
little
me
a long
1
winded.
second, we're
I'll let you
looking
circle
here.
back to it
Okay.
while you pull it up here. But Shelby got a victory over Josh. Shelby goes to 3-1. Josh falls to 2-2, 114.60 to 68.70. Shelby's name is the Cup side down. She is 3-1 with and expected to get Cooper Cup back as early as this because she could be a real threat. Josh Allen's first name I see. Not surprised she got the victory here. Justin Jefferson is still doing work for Josh. But his other complementary pieces, not so much. Geno Smith, Raheem Mostert, Ezekiel Elliott, Garrett Wilson, Fryermuth got hurt, Amari Cooper, Zay Flowers. So Josh had 2 people score 10 or more points. That's a tough week in fantasy football, and which is why you see him at 68 points in, where Shelby got 114, mainly thanks to Josh Allen, also the Ravens defense taking advantage of the rookie here. With that point spread, you can take a look at the bench. It's on your screen, but probably nothing really Josh could have done in that matchup. I'll move on to the next one unless you have some
Top 2
information.
picks were Tyreek Hill and then Bijan Robinson. T. Higgins pick 3. So Ken Walker actually fell all the way to round 6 in that league.
That was the weird one. I got Jamar Chase at pick 7. So that's
yes, that was the weird draft. You guys were playing. Everyone over in groups A and C in the drafts were playing checkers, and group B was trying to play chess. But I think it kind of came back to haunt some people because everyone was trying to be too strategic. There was a lot of hype around group B after we picked those leagues out, and I think the people who kind of let the draft come to them is starting to show.
And we'll just have to see if that strategy pays off rest of season. 2 more matchups in Group B. We have Cliff Neal, Gridiron Academy against Aaron. Aaron falls to 0-4, and Aaron is having a tough fantasy season between this and the league of record. So
Yeah, he's had a couple of tough losses. I forget exactly how Tyler beat him this week. I beat him a few weeks ago only because Nick Chubb got injured on Monday Night Football. Like it's been tough.
yeah, 84.98 to 135. Pretty straight beat down. Christian McCaffrey here, David Montgomery. Neil's been on with the David Montgomery pick. I will give him that. He started him week 1, and he had a pretty good week against the Kansas City Chiefs. Amon-Ra St. Brown, Justin Herbert, still, Christian Watson got back into it. The Steelers defense taking minus points didn't help. So even with Derrick Henry getting a quarter of his points, he was a tough week for Levan. Anything on the bench that really kicking himself? No, not really for either of those teams. So yeah, Khalil's team, you're looking pretty good here through the 3 weeks. I know you sent us some couple messages, couple late round picks you kind of regret here. Figure out those flex spots, and you could be a real contender down the line. The last matchup, though, is between Sheeler, also known as Jeff, at 106.98 to 72.72. Another again. So we had a couple close matchups, but a lot of blowouts in Group B this week. And I'm sure if you see down here, Josh Jacobs had a decent week. That was nice to see. Khalil Herbert, we've mentioned, he finally had a solid week. Tank Dell, this was a Nico Collins week. I don't know if we're going to just have a Nico Collins week, then a Tank Dell week or whatnot. He
We don't
struggled,
need another Lockett Metcalf situation, but it looks like we're getting to it.
but they were still able to survive here. Yeah, just a really week, especially, Patrick Mahomes, the first quarterback taken in most leagues, really struggled, looked uncharacteristic. I don't know if he was starstruck or what. in the big city, but definitely a tough week for him. He did have
Just
Nico Collins and Brock Purdy on the bench. Put those guys in the lineup. It's a lot closer matchup.
just a lot of tough luck with wide receivers on that side this game. I mean, he probably had it adjusted where like Debo should be his wide receiver 1.6 points. Michael Thomas, DeAndre Hopkins, Tyler Lockett as your 2, 3, 4 is like, I think a little weaker than the norm, but they just didn't do it. 8, 7, and 7, just not enough to make the push. And then the disappointing game from Mahomes and the disappointing start out of Mixon. Just, you need a little bit to turn around, but he's 2-2. And like, if I've learned anything, just stay in it at 2-2. And you have, with 6 teams making the playoffs, there's a chance that you could be one game below 500 and still sneak your way in and have a chance.
And it is worth noting for anyone that's not playing the World Cup is because there's a multi-year event, every win counts because that will determine the final spots for the World Cup League to see who is crowned the grand champion for the Couch GMs World Cup. So wins matter. Even if you don't make the playoffs, you still want to get those wins in your consolation brackets and to finish out the season strong. We got one more group. This is Georgia's group. George, I'm going to pull up your matchup, but I think you can talk about it off the top of your head. So you were Olave Garden versus my team, Brandon.
I don't know why Brandon can never come up with a good team name, but we're going to pass on that one. I, at one point, was projected 140 points, and I was still projected to lose. Obviously, both of us came back to earth a little bit, but my third straight week of scoring 110 plus, and I lost 2 out of 3 in those. It's a little bit tough, but I fall 137 to 113 for anybody that's listening along. Brandon's side, he'd had both Kyren Williams and Derrick Henry. He also had Puka Nacua. That's the third league that Kyren and Puka are on the same team. That's very interesting and something I did not notice until today. So that's pretty cool. He did play Joe Burrow, and it didn't seem to matter. Kelsey only got 9, Aaron Jones 1, but just a lot of top heavy. Swift got 15, Ravens defense 18. I was in the middle of that 1 o'clock window with Kyren and Derrick Henry and Puka, and Ravens defense going off. It just looked like he was not touchable. Did come back down to earth, but AJ Brown tried to save me. He could not. Same with Mandrews over there. But that was basically the 2 guys that hit on my team. Shout out to myself for telling everyone to add and play Adam Thielen. He had a decent week. Just toot my own horn a little bit, but
Hey, you have to. So that's a tough loss for George as George falls to 1-3. Brandon goes to 2-2. The next matchup, the second highest scorer is Josh in this group C, 144.20 versus Anthony at 89 points even.
there's the other 4-0 team.
The other 4-0 team. Thank you for pointing that out because I was going to breeze through this. Lamar Jackson, I believe he was on. She's on Bree's team, so there's another common denominator. Christian McCaffrey, we talked about him, the highest scoring person in fantasy. So he obviously had the first or the second pick. I think Justin Jefferson went first in every draft, and then Christian McCaffrey went second in most of them. But then let's see who else. Bills defense, that's their common denominator, the second highest ranked defense. But pretty impressive here with Garrett Wilson being, essentially the wide receiver 1, and Deebo Samuel. He's had a couple good weeks, a couple bad weeks as well. So really it looks like Josh's team is being held together by mainly Christian McCaffrey and Lamar Jackson, especially in the last couple of weeks by him, because his bench is not great. He might want to look in some depth there, maybe try to do a 2-for-1 deal, get some depth, because he also looks like he might have a roster spot available. Nope.
Yeah, with J.K. Dobbins is droppable if anyone does still have him. I know I stashed him on an injury reserve for no reason in one of my leagues, but I'd drop him if I needed that spot. This is the 4-0 team that concerns me the most because it hasn't been said by anybody yet. Week 5 starts buys. If you scroll back down, I think he gets Chris Godwin. Yep, that's already one person on buy. So filling in buys from that, like you got Michael Thomas and Zay Jones might be okay, but you're already taking a dramatic step down from that, and there's no one after those 2, really. I don't care about Jalen Hyde. I don't care about Kadarius Toney. Like,
Yeah, I know.
That is the team that's probably going to go 4 or 5-0, and then all of a sudden you're going to see them roll off 4 losses while they're on buys, and they'll be like, "Huh, he's human."
I think that's a good point too. And there's still, I don't know what the waiver wire looks like in your group. I'm obviously so slim pickings week this week, but the J.K. Dobbins, no, he's a Ravens fan. I was circling that if you're watching along on YouTube. But he can definitely go in the IR spot. And then Kadarius Toney, Jalen Hyatt are pretty much droppable at this point. So definitely have to wait and see but he got a victory, and that's all that matters. He put up 144 points, and maybe you said he'll rattle off 4 losses, or maybe Christian McCaffrey will be like, "Nah, dude, I got you," and that is 100%
Probably.
possible. What I've seen, so
Funniest I'm a quotes guy. Funniest quote that I've heard this week was someone on the 49ers broadcast was like, "Oh, Deebo Samuel didn't even have a catch and the 49ers dominated this game. They were really spreading the ball out." And I just thought to myself, no, they were doing the opposite because Christian McCaffrey got 9 of 10 plays in this game, evident by the fact he scored 45. Like it was frustrating. I mean, Ayuk did decent too, I guess, but it was all Christian McCaffrey.
yeah, except Brock Purdy getting that last QB sneak touchdown when they tried to give it to Juicy J. But here,
Brock Purdy for MVP.
Our next matchup, let's not get carried away. Cole doing the unthinkable and getting a victory with 90 points. So moves to 3-1, gets a lucky victory here.
As I sit here with 110, 3 straight weeks and 1 win.
Yep. And then versus David, who got 80.46. A very close matchup. Josh Jacobs. Let's see if there's any like big red flags. Did somebody forget to play somebody? Looks like both lineups are in compliant. George Pickens,
Is
Dallas
the Steelers
Goedert.
defense a red flag? No, I'm kidding.
I mean, you would think that's a plus matchup against the the Houston Texans, but those Texans,
Yeah.
they're balling out right now. I'm liking what I'm seeing from CJ Stroud. Let's check the bench though, and here is where all the points are.
Oh, it's quarterbacks. Never mind. I was getting really excited about Cole's bench until I noticed that it was Fields and Lawrence scoring those big points, and like quarterbacks is a little bit less impressive.
Hey, yeah, they 74 bench points to 71, but like you said, George, how about this one? We haven't talked about this guy at all, but your boy Cole Kmet, 24
Man,
points.
they played Denver. I was expecting no defense in that game. I didn't expect Cole Kmet to be the one to be the big beneficiary with 2 touchdowns. I mean, DJ Moore still went off. That's what you expected. You expected a little bit out of Justin Fields, but I'm not buying into that long term. That was a one and done, I'm pretty sure.
All right, he's available, I think, in every league. If someone maybe he's a waiver wire, want to go.
Well, except for this one, obviously. But
you're right. Except obviously,
this is
he's
why I'm
available
here.
in
This is
mine.
why I'm here, guys.
He's available in every one of my leagues that I'm in. Let's put it that way, because he was the guy that's like the top added suggestion. I'm like, yeah, I'm not doing that. But 2 more matchups. Let's run through them quick. Doug got a victory 101.72 to Jason's 92.30. And at this point, you pretty much know the guys that scored high. David Montgomery in a loss. That is a tough blow, but that puts 33 points is 1/3 of his output. So Geno Smith, James Conner, the only other guy that had to be a tough week for, why can I not remember your name? Jason. His 2 highest scorers on the week both played Thursday night.
And they're both on the same team.
Yep. They watched all Sunday and just nobody else could cross that 10-point mark. So that's a tough one.
And he basically just got Cowboys defense.
Basically just got Cowboys defense. I mean,
A-Chain on the bench.
A-Chain on the bench. Brock Purdy would have been better than Patrick Mahomes, but I don't blame anybody for not playing Brock Purdy.
Yeah.
Even in a bad matchup, you would play Patrick Mahomes every week that he's out there. One more matchup.
So I'll say before we move really quick, Doug is I think low key my favorite in Group C right now because he had 135 plus the first 2 weeks. Took a tough loss last week, struggled a little bit, but you saw like A-Chain on the bench, still got a win. Like he's got a pretty strong team. I actually like him over Josh's team because depth.
All right. Well, we'll have to wait and see how that one plays out. The final matchup is Mikey B 146.68 versus Jim. Both teams move to 2-2. And Stephon Diggs, Nico Collins, one of the few people to actually play Nico Collins in the Couch GMs World Cup this week, was paid off with a 32-point performance. Justin Herbert had a solid week. Good quarterback matchup. I mean, really, you're just looking at Stephon Diggs and Nico Collins. Terry McLaurin had a decent week as well, really pulling through here. Bench-wise, Isaiah Pacheco on the bench, Anthony Richardson on the bench. If you're playing it, but you got Jalen Hurts, so like that's going to be a tough one too. You're going to get a lot of that. Anthony Richardson actually outscores Jalen Hurts. You just have to roll with Hurts because his floor is higher than Anthony Richardson, in my opinion. If you got both of those, maybe you can trade to make one of those to a quarterback needy team. So that's pretty much the Couch GMs World Cup recap. Let's do one last thing before we get out of here with the quickest TNF preview.
This is why I'm here, and that I don't know if that was on purpose or not, but that is 100% a recap of the Thursday night game. You can just close it out now.
Oh, my yawn.
Yeah.
Yeah, so if you know, it's the Washington Commanders versus the Chicago Bears. I'm gonna be honest with you, I didn't do too much research in this one. I don't even know if it's played in Washington or Chicago.
Believe it's in Washington, which that stadium's junk.
Marcus
And the
will
Bears
probably
team's
be there,
junk.
maybe.
Oh yeah, he probably will. Hope you enjoy, Marcus. Should get a dub.
All right, but
This is the worst preview ever.
but in real talk, fantasy wise, Justin Fields balled out last week, but it was against Denver, one of the worst defenses in the league, the worst defense in the league, and on pace to be one of the worst defenses of all time. Are you confident starting Justin Fields this week on Thursday Night Football?
You see, the only reason I'm going to say no is because I hope when he was struggling and we were talking about him being borderline droppable, you found yourself a solid option off the wire. If you weren't somebody that found one of those 5 quarterbacks that were starting to break out off the wire, then yeah, I think you can roll with Fields, but like I'd still rather play a CJ Stroud. I'd still rather play a Jordan Love. Just because I'm afraid that one game, like I said about the Bears, like the Broncos and the Bears and Cole Kmet, like I'm afraid that was a fluke. Washington might not be the best team, but they have a decent defense. And the only way that they're going to have a decent game out of Fields is if he's running for his life from that really good defensive front on Washington, and he happens to get a lot of rushing yards, which has not been the case a lot of the time this year.
Gotcha. I'm on the other side. I would play Justin Fields unless you got like a really good guy. Like if you were able to get Anthony Richardson, which I believe he was drafted in all 3 of the World Cup leagues. I can't remember off the top of my head, but I'm pretty sure he was. But if you were able to get a guy like him or even maybe a Kirk Cousins, I know he had a down week. I'd probably play them over Justin Fields, but I think he still has that high. He hasn't done it yet through the ground. Surprisingly, his big week came through the air, but we've seen he'd still take a scramble play 70 yards to the house. And I think that is still worth playing, especially in what could be a bad matchup. Or just
I
could be
mean,
a
it
little.
is technically a green matchup, so I wouldn't blame you for playing him. I'm just saying, like, I think a lot of Fields owners have options I trust more at this point. I'm not saying it's a bad matchup though.
And then you play DJ Moore, I guess.
Yep.
He's number one
as your flex, basically. Yeah.
right. Khalil Herbert, I guess he could be a flex. He dominated in snaps. I don't think there's too much to the Roshan information. You don't have to worry about Claypool. He might be traded by the time this podcast you're listening to it. On the Commander side, I almost said their old name. Taylor Lauren, he had a bounce back week. I think you can play him. Jahan Dotson, probably would try not to play him if I could. And if you do play him, make sure you move him to a wide receiver, not your flex, even though he is your first or second flex option. And then Brian Robinson, he is I like him in this matchup. Any other guys you want to mention on either of these two teams?
Sam Howell as a potential quarterback stream play if you have like a Justin Herbert on a bye or something. The matchup's not going to get any better. The Bears defense can't hit the side of a barn at this point. That was a horrible freaking. You know what I mean, though. They're
Yeah, I got
bad.
you. You see, what
I'm
happened was
playing. Like, I wouldn't even think about playing Dotson in most cases, but the fact that you said you have a chance to play Dotson shows you exactly how bad the Bears have been.
exactly. So that wraps up the quickest Thursday night preview. This has been the Couch GMs World Cup recap, Thursday night preview. George, Tyler, and myself will be back later this week. As always, thanks for checking out. Follow us at the Couch GMs, and we will talk to you later in the week.